Foth.
Northrop.
Crazy times.
Yeah.
You have a few more years than I do. Matter of fact, you just celebrated a kind of a special birthday.
Yes.
You want to talk about that at all?
I just, as I would put it, I just finished my 78th trip around the sun. This is the first day of my 79th trip.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you.
It's pretty crazy right now. You know,
It is.
One of the things that I wanted to visit with you about, just because you've been such a mentor to me in my life, and you've calmed me at times when I've felt anxious, and you've spoken so much truth into me that I thought it would be really nice to be able to have a conversation about what's happening in our world with coronavirus. I remember preaching a sermon years ago called The Certainty of Uncertainty, and how we have these moments in our lives where things just get flipped over on their head, and I thought I was secure about that, but suddenly I'm not. And I think the certainty that I felt 3 weeks ago, living, health, financial security, it was the illusion of certainty.
Mm.
It wasn't really certainty.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that we have it. You've had a few trips around the sun. What do you think about all that?
I think that's absolutely correct for starters, and for enders, for that matter. You know, I was born on March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, 1942, 3 months after Pearl Harbor. I was born into uncertain times. I didn't know it then, but looking back, my parents certainly know it. They had gone through World War I, the great influenza epidemic where 20 to 50 million people died, the Great Depression, and now World War II. So they knew about this business. And the idea that beyond all of the tactics, because I'm washing my hands every other time I think, I'm just doing that. I never wipe stuff.
Right.
I wiped down the cart yesterday, wherever I was. Those are tactical things. Those are tactical responses to things. My question, and what I've been thinking about a lot, is this strategic thought about what is there that's going to last. If in fact this body is going to fall off in a few years, if in fact, as we believe, the planet at some point goes up in smoke, what is there we can count on? And I think that really is the question. And when I think of my own experience of being uncertain, I asked myself the other day, when were you most scared? I think there were 2 times that maybe I can look back and say I was most scared as an adult. One was 9/11. I was a mile north of the Pentagon when the plane went in. And it was, you talk about a ghost town. Fort Collins is sort of a ghost town right now. It's just an old town.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But D.C. for the 2 or 3 days after 9/11 was like that, except you had armed soldiers with gas masks on the corners and M16. And then when Ruth collapsed at Estes Park 7 years ago, those 2 times I have been most frightened. And there were 2 things that happened in sort of both of those instances, and that was the reflex of calling on God, saying, God help me, or what's going on. And in Ruth's case, it was also calling 911. And I think that whatever is in us when times of stress or critical mass or catastrophe come, that comes out, whatever it is. And so for me, and I don't think this is just because I'm an older dude, I think the fact that God gives us a place to stand is the place we need to start and the place we need to end. And how we look at that and explore that, I think, is critical.
You know, I was thinking the other night about how many times Jesus said, don't be afraid.
Yeah.
Like, he starts a lot of conversations.
Yes, he does.
He walks into a room, don't be afraid. Yeah. Someone comes to him, don't be afraid.
Why do you think he does that?
Because I think he knows us. I think he knows our tendency is to fear the unknown.
Yeah.
And yet our lives and our futures are truly unknown. So it's created a question in me of, where is that fear coming from in people that are panicked, obviously, and we're not having a food shortage in our country, but you would think we are when you go to the store these days.
Yes.
People are buying up everything.
Yeah.
But I think it's just the reaction to the fear component of what if all of a sudden am I guaranteed there's going to be food there tomorrow? So that to me is one of those factors that creates this uncertainty. And what we're seeing in people is it's big, it's panic, it's hysteria, it's fear to the point of anxiety that is pushing people through the roof in terms of things they've never felt before.
I think what I've experienced over the years is that fear is our default. I understand that we have two fears as babies. One is the fear of falling and the fear of loud noises. And over the last few years, when Ruth hasn't wanted to fly so much, when she heard that the first time, she poked me and she said, "That's why, because that fall and that loud noise."
She's a brilliant woman.
But if you Google fear, there are like 1,000 fears. You know?
Yeah.
And that piece is where we naturally go, because I think we want to be in control. I think it's exacerbated in our age, because for the last 20 or 30 years of my 78, we as a nation, we are wealthy. We have a couple of generations that have never felt angst about events as much, but they have the most angst, most anxiety of any generation, because they know so much. You get 1,000 messages and you get all of this information going. And part of what drives this today, I think this is right, is that with the internet and social media being the way it is, every little piece is reported instantly from around the world, whether it's Bulgaria or China, wherever it is. And I'm not built to handle that much negative information at one time, and it paralyzes us in a lot of ways.
Maybe just to kind of bring some resolve to this idea of uncertainty, fear. Do you think maybe this is just coincidental, but do you think Jesus was trying to be intentional in his last few words there before he ascended into heaven, of saying, hey, go into all the world, preach the gospel, the message matters. But then he kind of said, you don't really have to worry, like, I'm with you always. There's this idea that he wanted to truly put a deposit. If it was my last conversation with you, or with my kids or with my wife, I'd probably want to say the most important things. Do you think him saying that was strategic? I will be with you always. I will always be with you.
I think absolutely. And I think it connects to what Yahweh, Jehovah, said to Moses at the burning bush. I am that I am. Clearly that's not a Western name, because that would be I do that I do. I am that I am is the most secure name in the universe. And of all the scores of names there are for God, I am is the core name. I am the God who goes before you. I am the God who provides. I am the way, I am the truth, I am the resurrection. I have this thesis. I don't know if this is right or not, but if it's heresy, he'll take me out. But Dary Northrop is your name, right? Northrop is your clan name. That shows where you belong. Dary is your unique name in the clan. That's your uniqueness. I believe when we start following Jesus that we get this other universal, eternal name, I am. So it's Dary, I am Northrop, that shows where I ultimately belong.
Wow.
I think there's something about that is profoundly calming. And I don't think it's just because one might be old and people say, well, you're almost done anyway, so you don't have to be scared. I think there's something as we have to deal tactically, but we think strategically, that battle is won by what we dwell on in the 5.5-inch world between my ears. You know, there may be a coronavirus pandemic all around me. Don't let there be a pandemic of fear in the 5.5 inches between my ears.
Wow.
And when I think about that, you know, I think about this passage that you spoke on, I think this past week in Philippians. And at some point I'd like to just read that because I think it fits so much. But I think the real battle beyond the particulars of the pandemic is right here, because that lesson learned in this moment can carry us for the rest of our lives.
So maybe we can say with confidence, I can, in fact, have the peace of God because I know the I am, and my trust is in Him, and my only certainty isn't from anything in this world or on this earth. It is knowing who He is and letting Him rule in me, and that brings me calm.
Yeah.
Thank you. Wow.
Absolutely.